like a trick of the trade, right? You really don't give this out, to be honest with you. So consider this consider this a gem, right? I knew that this had to be denied. Do I want to put something that I really want to affirm in the position for it to be denied? It's like chess. You don't put yourself in a position, you know, you're playing a game of chess, you know if you move your bishop here, you can get the queen, and getting the queen's a good thing. But you also know if you move the bishop in there, in that position, and take the queen, then there is an opportunity, and the question would be if the queen was in a position for the bishop to take it, she should have taken the bishop. But irrespective of that, if you move you're playing with a novice, right? So the queen's in a position where you can move your bishop to take the queen, and you move the bishop, you take the queen, but you also recognize that insofar as you do that, you put yourself in a predicament where you could be in checkmate. Well, you don't need to do that. That's the wrong move. I don't, you know, I'm not going to put what I want ultimately to persuade my reader of in a position to be denied. That would be a stupid thing to do. Unfortunately, people do this all the time. They lose track because they don't know or they haven't been following the logic of their argument, and they put the claim that they're trying to defend in disjunctive position 1, disjunct 1's position, which means it has to be negated by default, by formula. It has to be negated, and they affirm it or they negate something else, and their argument is a mess. It's a complete mess. You just point out that one little spot and you move on to the next system to destroy, right? I mean, this is the Kantian Nietzschean system of how to destroy systems, right? That's what they did. Like Kant destroyed metaphysics. There was 2,000 years of metaphysics before him. He individually destroyed it on his own. Nietzsche comes, there's 2,000 years of sort of theological discourse and influence. He, at least he believed, came along and destroyed it, right? That's the school of thought that I came from. And the idea is, don't put your argument, don't construct your argument in such a way that you put what you know you will need to deny in a weak position. If you think of this in terms of power, structure, this disjunctive position is a weaker disjunctive position than disjunctive position 2. They don't teach you this in logic, right? This is not a logic lecture per se. I mean, it is. But this doesn't conform to any rules per se, right? This is why I said this is all freestyle. This is all freestyle, right? But this is a weaker position in terms of argument. I don't want to put what I really want to defend in this position because I know it has to be negated later. So if you read something that I write, and it's going to be crazy because now people are going to know sort of but I write on a different level though. I mean, a lot of it is modal, but I do incorporate a lot of this in parts of my... It's going to make me stronger anyway, because they're going to start critiquing me with my own tools. It'll just make me stronger. It's all great. But the idea is something that I really want to persuade, I want to defend. I'm not going to put it in a, let's just call this D1 for disjunctive 1 position. I'm not going to put it in a D1 position, I'm going to put it in a D2 position, right? Because the D2 position is ultimately what's going to prevail. And I want this to prevail, so I put my stronger claim here. So despite the fact that I present the information as though it is this very economically balanced persuasion. Either you can do this or you can do this. It's all a guise. The truth is, I'm presenting this, and you know that whatever argument I'm putting in D1 position, I'm ultimately going to undermine, to reinforce what the drive of my real intent is, which is D2, right? The reaffirmation of D2. Now, I can tell you this because it might be maniacal, but it's like baby evil. It's not like big boy evil. Right, so it's not like Dr. Evil. You know, so I don't mind putting that out there. Because the truth of this is you know, you put on non-monotonic and fuzzy, and then you have a dynamic system where truth becomes flexible rather than sort of a fixed state condition, and you're on a whole nother league, right? So I don't mind putting this out there. Obviously then, you should recognize that I placed as disjunct 1, D1, the claim that I would ultimately deny. You should recognize that in appropriating disjunctive syllogism to our analysis, since D1 is denied within DS, any part of the argument that assumes the position of D1 will also need to be denied. Thus, prior to even reading the argument for why I will inevitably deny the viability, feasibility of D1, you now know that I will have to deny it in order to maintain consistency. So you see, wait a second, this looks like a disjunctive syllogism. Dr. Campbell just wrote something, it looks like a disjunctive syllogism. I know Dr. Campbell. This is how he thinks. This is, in fact, a disjunctive syllogism. He's going to deny this claim in position D1, disjunct 1. He's going to deny this claim later. I guarantee it. Sure enough, 4 pages later, there it is. He's denied it. He's going to reaffirm the second disjunctive claim that he made previously. Sure enough, 8 pages later, he reaffirms it. Right? It makes the work predictable. It makes it consistent. But the truth is, on sort of a book publication level, the argument analysis is much, much, much more rigorous. But it's not so rigorous as to lose its persuasive appeal. Because the idea is, and again, I told you, I'm not writing this, and I didn't compile these notes, and I'm not doing this lecture for you to be able to get tenure or to write a cool article for your high school, newspaper, or your dissertation, your thesis is all well and good. All of that you can use this for. The deeper implications of this is I can, and you can, and some of you will, be able to use this to create profoundly complicated logical arguments that aren't necessarily meant to persuade, right? You can create insanely complicated logical structures that aren't necessarily meant to be persuaded, but it's going to prevent basically the uninitiated from gaining any conceptual understanding as to what you're saying, because it's so thick, right? There's a point at which jargon becomes another language, right? And that's the whole point, is to take it to that transformational, transcendental level where the language of your writing, and this is just me, it's fetishized language, it's fetishized wordplay. That's the level that I'm on right now, right? It's not like I'm at this level. It's not like I'm even really remotely even interested in persuading someone to do anything. I don't really even care. It's the fact that it can be done. It's like the movie Prometheus, right? David goes to his creator. Why did you do it? Why did you create me? He was like, because we could. This is because we can. We can fetishize our language, and I want to fetishize it, right? I want to turn this into an object for display and procession, just because it can be, right? And I don't expect, or do I desire for the vast majority of people to want to do this or to want to understand this, right? It's not for that. That's precisely why it's been fetishized, right? So you don't have to necessarily take it to that sort of uber level, but know that the condition has been set, the table has been set for it to be taken to that level, and you can go to bed knowing for certain that I take it to that level, right? I do take it to that level. So you should recognize that your, so I said all of that, blah, 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 blah. Maintain consistency. So note, middle of page 21, you should also recognize that the denial of disjunct 1 will require more than a simple denial. You can't just say, either the population will increase, or, either there will be an attempt to regulate the population, or there will be an attempt to influence consumer behavior or what have you, human behavior or what have you. There is not an attempt to regulate the population. And then just, well, the question is always going to be, well, why, right? You can't just deny it and just move on. Why has that statement been denied? So it's important to understand that it requires more than just a simple denial. The denial will in itself require justification. And I'll explain what that means sort of logically. There's an aspect to logic. I'm not going to do it formalized, sort of meta logic, right? In terms of programming code and stuff, to my understanding, programmers use meta language sometimes, which I don't really have an understanding of. I just don't have the time to study some new stuff. But if I were to ever get in anything, it'd probably be sort of like the meta language of computer syntax and blah, blah, blah. Linguistically, meta language is meta theory. There's the study of the theory, the structure, the language, the logic. We're about to broach what will be known as a meta-analytic account of the logic of our argument, and it's what we're about to do on the next page,